Okay, so we've taken our time to get our work marked out really accurately. We've got our fingers marked on accurately on this side. We've got it marked on the end. And we've also got it marked on the other side. And this is so that we can track where our saw's going to make sure we've got a really accurate, snug finger joint. It's really important that you have hatched out your work, just these few little lines, just to indicate that's where I'm cutting off the material. I'm just going to show you and make sure that you know what it's not. What it's not is colouring it in. Because when we colour it in and shade it in like this, we lose the accuracy of where our line is. Okay, so we just make sure it's just a couple of dashes. This is way quicker than actually shading it in like that as well, so it saves us time. We're then going to set it up in the vise. So we're going to take our work, we're going to set it in the vise. It should be sticking out of the vise about 2 centimetres. We need to make sure that it is as level as we can get it. And we need to make sure it is just tight enough that it's going to hold our work, but not so tight we're going to struggle to undo the vise. Now we're going to take our coping saw. It's really important we do a few checks. So we just make sure that the handle is tight and it doesn't wobble. We need to make sure that the blade is straight and not twisted. And we need to make sure that the teeth are pointing downwards towards the handle. If there's a problem with your saw on any of those checks, make sure you make your teacher aware, and they will show you how you can fix that problem, or they'll fix it for you. We now need to line up for our cut. So we need to take our saw. We need to make sure that this angle here between the saw blade and our piece of wood is at 90 degrees. That should line up with our line that we've drawn. We need to make sure that the saw blade is level with the tabletop at all times. Lots of people think that you need to saw pointing downwards. Not so in this case. We want a nice level cut. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to cut just on the waist side of the line. So what we mean by that is not actually cutting exactly on the line. We're going to cut about 0.5 millimetre inside, but on the bit we're trying to remove. We can always file it back to the size of the joint that we want. So to start our cut, I'm going to relax and I'm going to pull the saw towards me. I'm taking my time. The saw cuts at its best when it pulls towards you. Notice how slow and steady my saw strokes were. That means I've got maximum control over the saw, where it's going and how deep it's going. Once we've generated our dust, we're just going to use a wipe just to wipe it away. Or we could use a damp paper towel. The reason we do that is because we don't want the dust to be blown into our eye, into somebody else's eye, but even worse still, before you blow, you always have an intake of air. And as you suck in your breath, you suck in particles of wood dust, and it's never good to have wood dust in our lungs. So, I've cleared away my dust. I'm just going to check that I've gone down far enough on that side. I've gone down far enough on that side. Now I need to do my other downwards cuts. So I'm going to do all of my downward cuts together. Showing the same amount of control, the same amount of precision. and the same amount of accuracy. There are two more straight cuts I can make straight away, and that's this one and this one. So I'm going to do those first. Again, setting my vise so it's about 2 centimeters above. You might want to go a little bit higher this time. Just going to move that out the way of the camera. And here we go. Exactly the same again. I'm going to take my time. Nice and gentle, nice and relaxed. When I get down to the end, I'm just going to slow right down. There we go. My first piece removed. Now I'm just going to change my piece of work round so I can cut the other side. There we go. Our first piece is removed. Now we're left with the puzzle. How do we get rid of the middle section? Well, it's actually quite easy once you know how. So you set your work in the vise. This time what we're going to do is we're going to cut at an angle. So we're going to do all our same checks. We're going to make sure our blade is parallel to the table. Okay, we're going to make sure that this angle here is at 90 degrees. But we're now going to add something else in. We're going to angle our saw this way. And we're going to cut diagonally across to the opposite corner. Again, taking your time. And here you can see I've removed that section of my finger joint. Next job, I'm going to put my saw in. I'm going to angle it over now, so the same checks apply. The blade still needs to be level with the tabletop. This still needs to be at 90 degrees, but we're just pointing the saw. The cutting direction changes. This one you need to just start off gently, applying very gentle pressure sideways until it just bites into the wood, and then we're ready to saw. If my saw blade jams like that, it's really important that I relax and I just try and gently move the saw so it can free itself, because if I put more and more pressure on, when that saw slips, it can slip into you, and each one of these saw teeth is like a tiny little blade, so that's many cuts we can get. But also, we're going to lose the accuracy on our work, because when it jumps, it's going to want to cut the wood, and we might actually cut in a place we don't want it to. So I'm just going to relax. And there we have it. My next block, before I even consider cutting it, I'm just going to offer it up to the next one. I'm going to use another block just to check that it's level. And I'm just going to check, is there anything I need to do to make sure that it is going to be more accurate? Because with the best will in the world, our cutting could have gone ever so slightly wonky. So there could be some adjustments that we need to make, and I can see that there is at least 2. So I've got one there one there. Now you can probably see the new marks I've made are only about 1/2 millimetre in difference. However, that's going to mean the difference between me having a good piece of work and a truly great piece of work. So I'm just going to get my tri-square again, and I'm just going to redraw those lines. The extra effort of putting in the 30 to 40 seconds, maybe even a minute maximum of remarking, is going to mean that my work is going to be far more accurate. Okay. So now this time it's both inside cuts that I need to make. So I'm just going to cut these now. Okay, here's my two pieces. My finger joint has now been cut. The next thing to do is to try and fit it together. And if we've done the right thing, if we've done it good, it should be a good, snug friction fit. There might be a few bits that I need to clean up and to get working accurately, but it is a good, snug fit. There's nothing I need to take off the sides. What I think I do need to do is just to get these bits sat a little bit deeper in the joints, because what we're after is a really nice flush finish, and at the moment this is far from flush. Okay, you might think that that is only a tiny gap of a millimetre or so. A professional carpenter would say that so that gap is so big you could drive a bus through it. You might well hear me saying that in your lessons. Once I've got corner 2 made, I'm then going to move on to making sure that my other joints match up. So I'm going to work only on one corner at a time. Okay, this first joint will possibly take you an entire lesson. That is fine, because I'd rather you take the time to make sure your work is accurate and you get a really great result. The next joints for the other corners, they will probably take you less time because you're familiar with what it is you need to do to get a quality result. The winners in DT are those who get the best joints. Not those who get the joints completed fastest, but those who get the best joints, even if it takes you a little bit longer because you've had to remeasure and remark maybe a couple of times. Good luck. I can't wait to see what you make.